Hey folks, this is David back again. And since I'm going to be making content in honor of the now late great Eddie Van Halen, I'm going to be doing something a little different for this channel. If you didn't notice by the title of the video, I'm going to be doing some album reviews starting from here on out. I've been thinking of doing something like this for quite some time, and I thought I may as well go ahead and do so here with this certain album I'm going to be talking about, that I'm about to talk about. But before I get into that, I want to point out some stuff real quick. I'm no professional reviewer. I'm no professional music critic. And all these opinions are going to be completely honest right from me. And for some of you people that can deal with different opinions and something that you may not agree with me, or that you disagree with me, if you have no problem with that, then this will be your channel. However, if you cannot handle different opinions and whatnot, this ain't going to be your channel. So, with that out of the way, let's get into it. If you notice by the shirt, that's going to give you a bit of a hint on what I'm going to be talking about. Yes, the mighty Van Halen. But these albums I'm going to be talking about in my tribute to Eddie, I'm going to be talking about the 7 studio albums that Van Halen did with David Lee Roth as lead vocalist. Now, I'm not saying I don't like the Sammy Hagar era of Van Halen. I do like the Sammy Hagar era of Van Halen, because the Sammy Hagar era, or Van Hagar, is what a lot of people call it. I'm one of those people that calls it that too. I grew up with both DLR and Sammy Hagar era Van Halen. Like, I grew up hearing songs like Panama, Jump, and The Cradle Will Rock on the David Lee Roth side. Excuse me. And on the Sammy Hagar side, I would hear Dreams and Why Can't This Be Love. And I loved all those songs. So, that's kind of like my story of how I got exposed to Van Halen during my childhood. But I'm actually more of a David Lee Roth era Van Halen fan, more of the Sammy Hagar fan. Sammy Hagar era fan, excuse me. Because I just find the songwriting and the material a lot stronger, especially with the production and the guitar tones and all that. I find that a lot better on the David Lee Roth era albums, in contrary to the Sammy Hagar era albums. But since I'm going to be talking about the David Lee Roth era albums, I'm sure you know which one I'm going to start off with. That's right. The first album. The one that started it all for Van Halen. The 1978 self-titled debut album for Van Halen. Certified Diamond. 10 times platinum here in America, in the States. Over 10 million copies in the States alone of this album. It's quite a number of copies sold. And what a legendary album it would turn out to be. It was produced by Ted Templeman, who was known for producing the first 6 Van Halen albums. And the first 6 Van Halen albums were under the Warner Brothers label, which had Ted Templeman producing. And it has Eddie Van Halen on guitar and backing vocals, David Lee Roth on lead vocals and acoustic guitar, Michael Anthony on bass guitar and backing vocals, and Alex Van Halen on drums. So let's get into the track listing. Track 1, Runnin with the Devil. The first Van Halen song as soon as you put that album in. The first song. Already, right off the bat, it's become one of Van Halen's iconic songs. It will start off with that little car horn effect, and then Michael Anthony's one-note bass line. If you hear that bass line, you know it's going to be Running with the Devil. And then Eddie's guitar riff would kick in. And man, what a riff that is. I mean, wow. It's just such a killer tone right off the bat. And then, of course, you would hear David Lee Roth's charisma. So, right off the bat, we're about to be introduced to a new guitar hero, Eddie Van Halen, and a new charismatic rock frontman, David Lee Roth. So, I mean, man, this is one of those songs that you just cannot go wrong with if you're a Van Halen fan. I'm sure maybe some people may get a little bit tired of it because of how maybe overplayed it has been. I mean, I wasn't around in the 70s or the 80s, so. But then again, it's one of their iconic songs, so I can definitely kind of see that. But man, you can't go wrong with that killer riff, and the Eddie doesn't really do any super crazy soloing or dive bombs or a tapping solos or fast tremolo picking solo in this one. But it's just mainly a mid-tempo rocker, and it just provides killer riffs and DLR swagger. So we're already off to a killer start to this album. Track 2. If you have a track named Eruption, then Eddie Van Halen is the volcano. Because this is the track, the instrumental, that changed guitar playing at that time. This was 1978. Because back then, the guitar hero that like changed guitar playing forever prior to Eddie Van Halen was Jimi Hendrix. And there wasn't like any killer, like crazy guitar virtuoso, or maybe not many, since the time of Jimi Hendrix. But Eddie Van Halen would, of course, be one of the most influential guitar players that changed the guitar playing since then. That's why, in my personal opinion, I think Eddie Van Halen was the guitar hero of the 1970s. There's no doubt, in my personal opinion. Because this is where he would utilize the tapping technique. Now, of course, he did not invent the tapping technique. He just took that and raised the bar, like pushed it up 11 more notches. He raised the bar for the tapping technique, but then again, this album would raise the bar for guitar playing at that time. But I'll get into that whenever we give my final thoughts on it. But man, what great showmanship by Eddie Van Halen in the track of Eruption. The track is called Eruption. Eddie Van Halen is the guitar. No, excuse me. The track is called Eruption. Eddie Van Halen is a volcano. And Eddie Van Halen is going to melt your faces off with his playing. So that's what I think of. Think of Eddie Van Halen as a volcano. His playing is going to melt your faces off. And he is about to erupt. That's probably like as close as it can get to describing Eruption. Well, that's what I think. Track 3, You Really Got Me. A cover song. Originally done by the Kinks. Now, I actually came in with the Van Halen version of the song first, prior to the Kinks version. And I'm sorry for all you Kinks fans out there, but I actually prefer the Van Halen version over the Kinks version. A lot more energy for my taste. And oh boy, you follow up Eruption with a song like this, it's just such a fantastic 1-2 punch. It's so fun and it's so badass. We get more killer riffs from Eddie and more fantastic soloing by Eddie. And killer choruses. I forgot to mention this during Runnin with the Devil. But Michael Anthony, if you hear the high-pitched harmonies, that's Michael Anthony doing that. And his high-pitched harmonies are like part of the DNA of the original Van Halen. It's so those high-pitched harmonies that Michael Anthony does are so underrated. And it's just, it adds to the magic of the Van Halen gang vocals, along with Eddie's backing vocals. But most of the time you'll hear Michael Anthony, along with those choruses, because those choruses are just so awesome. It's just all types of awesome. So, 3 songs in, they're just pushing that momentum here, folks. Track number 4, Ain't Talking About Love. One of my all-time favorite Van Halen tunes, my second favorite Van Halen song ever, but my favorite song off the album. I know I could probably said Eruption would have been my favorite tune, but I guess in terms of actual songs with vocals and lyrics, that's what I'm mainly pointing towards. But Eruption is just absolutely undeniable. But Ain't Talking About Love is one of the best. I mean, that riff is one of the best riffs I've ever heard. One of the best riffs in rock history, in my personal opinion. I mean, oh, it just does not get better than that riff and that Ain't Talking About Love chorus. Ah. And then at the end when they do that little, hey, 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 well, keep going with that riff. My gosh, this song is just all kinds of awesome. This song is just, will never get old for me. But then again, I don't think any Van Halen song from the DLR era would get that old for me. I mean, of course, there's like a couple songs that are like take it or leave it for me, but none on this album. Spoiler alert. Track number 5, I'm the One. Another badass Eddie riff. And Alex is playing a shuffle beat in this song. So this is where Alex Van Halen can really show off his impressive drum chops. In my personal opinion, Alex Van Halen is my all-time favorite drummer. And I think he has the best, my favorite drum sound of all time. Particularly the snare. This is where Ted Templeman's production really, I think of all the Van Halen albums, I love the production on this album the most out of all the DLR Van Halen. Of all Van Halen albums, I love the production on this album. Especially that drum sound. The snare sound is just so in your face and it's so clear. But then again, of course, the production for the whole thing. The guitar tones, the vocals, the drum sound, all of it. Ted Templeman's production is just so top-notch. I think Ted Templeman I know Ted Templeman is one of my all-time favorite producers. I mean, there's just a lot of great stuff from this album. So a fast shuffle beat from this song, more badass guitar riffs, and kick-ass choruses. But this is where Eddie really starts to cut loose on the solos, tapping solos, fast tremolo picking. Man, these guys are just, and then a big rock ending with that crazy soloing. And I love his whammy. I also love Eddie's whammy bar effects that he uses. It's just, oh my gosh, these guys are firing on all cylinders so far. So, track number 6 is what's going to start off side 2. Jamie's Crying. One of the more popular songs that Van Halen has done throughout their career. I'd hear this song on the radio on occasion, especially at work, as well as Eruption and You Really Got Me. I hear that on the radio at work on occasion, as well as Jamie's Crying. But this is one of the more popular songs that the band has done. So we got the little opening guitar figure with another kick-ass riff playing underneath it. And then that chorus is all kinds of catchy. And there's not really I mean, if you want to call it a solo, that's fine, but I don't really consider this song really with a solo. It's just mainly using that, well, the solo, I guess, just, taking that opening guitar figure and just kind of messing around with it a little bit. But sometimes I just don't really consider that a solo. It's not going to be something that's going to melt your face off or anything. It's more like like I said, it's more of a poppy Van Halen tune. A pop song done by a hard rock band. And hey, they're knocking it out of the park so far. So, really fun tune, I love it. Track 7, Atomic Punk. That opening figure is where Eddie Van Halen actually starts scratching on the strings. That chugga 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 chugga. It's all kinds of awesome. That's what he's doing, is scratching on the strings. So he actually does that twice throughout the song. The very start and right after the solo is when he does it the second time. Now with this album, it's more, you're not going to get so incredibly in-depth, serious lyrics. However, it does, David Lee Roth actually does get more serious with his lyrics later on in the discography for Van Halen. But most of the time you're going to get lyrics like, like typical rock band lyrics like sex, songs that describe a touring band, band going on tour, or rock personas. Because David Lee Roth is one of the most charismatic frontmen of all time. One of the greatest. I mean, he's definitely not, I would not say he's the greatest frontman of all time. I would have to say Freddie Mercury would have to be the greatest frontman of all time, because he's like the man that filled every box for a great frontman. Freddie Mercury, one of the greatest voices ever. He had that charisma. He filled every box for a rock frontman. David Lee Roth actually, he's no gifted singer, but what makes up for it is his style, his attitude, his personality. That's what makes him stand out for a lot of the other frontmen that you care to name. So that's when Diamond David Lee Roth was about to make his presence felt. But then again, David Lee Roth used several personas throughout his career. But this was basically the birth of Diamond David Lee Roth. So it's just basically more of the same thing, you know, kick-ass riffs. Not really a fast tremolo picked. It's tremolo picked solo, but it's not fast. Not really fast, like, say, in comparison. Definitely not as fast as I'm the One, that's for sure. But they're just providing more, you know, just what they're doing so far. Kick-ass riffs and DLR swagger and that underrated rhythm section of Michael Anthony and Alex Van Halen. Track number 8, Feel Your Love Tonight. Another badass Eddie riff to start this off. I love hearing guitar riffs starting off the song like all by themselves. Eddie Van Halen is no exception to that. And then, you know, more, the song is of course more about, you know, typical rock band lyrics. And the solo is, you know, just more typical Eddie solos, and you know, more killer choruses that, whenever DLR would sing the chorus by himself, the backing vocals, Eddie and Michael Anthony would sing right after him. It's all kinds of awesome. And I love how they do that at the very end of the song, when it's just, you know, them by themselves with no drums, no guitar. They're singing it by themselves to carry the song out. This is another good song so far. Track number 9, Little Dreamer. Yet another lone Eddie guitar figure that is just all kinds of awesome. But we get up a bit of a different kind of groove with this song. But then again, there was like a lot of, I mean, you get a lot of grooves when it comes to Van Halen. But this is like a, there's like something about this song that's kind of, it's like a slower groove to this song. And the vibe of this song is a bit more serious, more menacing sounding. And David Lee Roth doesn't really, you know, utilize his screeches that he's known for. That he does that a lot throughout his career, especially in the Van Halen discography. But by this time, you would already hear his screams that he does that a lot. And that's, of course, what made him stand out as one of the great rock frontmen. But in this song, he doesn't do that. He sings a bit more hushed, a bit more in his lower register. And, you know, you know, just the whole vibe of the song just sounds more menacing. I mean, killer guitar tones, and the solo, you know, it feels a bit more serious this time around. So, you know, they're just still firing on all cylinders, just knocking us out so far. Track number 10, Ice Cream Man. Another cover tune. This time it was done by blues guitarist John Brim. But of course, like You Really Got Me, I came into this song prior to the original Ice Cream Man, and I favor this version. And I find this tune absolutely funny, because this is where David Lee Roth, he starts things off with his acoustic guitar, and additional brownie points is that it's got my name in it, you know, with the line, "Better look out now, though, Dave's got something for you, I'll tell you what it is." It's obviously, the song is obviously an innuendo for a sex song, of course, because, I mean, what else are you going to expect for a typical rock band lyrics? But I find this tune funny, mainly because of the David Lee Roth intro part. But then again, after the second time David Lee Roth would do his second verse, that's when the whole band will kick in, and it just starts to really punch you in the face with the hard rocking it up. And then, of course, Eddie Van Halen going to a tapping solo. You know, just Eddie Van Halen being Eddie Van Halen. And then they would play out to a big rock ending at the end. So, and I love how David Lee Roth would kind of utilizes different registers. His more louder register, and then he would just kind of sing low. That's what I love. I love those parts where it gets a lot more prominent later on in the discography, where David Lee Roth would do those little spoken word sections, or his David Lee Roth isms, where only he could get away with back in the 70s or during his time. That's yet another thing that made him stand out. What made him have that confidence to pull stuff like that in songs like that. But of course, I'll go to that whenever we go to this rest of the discography. He doesn't really do that a whole lot in this album, but I love it when he does those little speaking, low speaking. That's what I find very funny about him, because I also love David Lee Roth's sense of humor. That's why I'm a lot more drawn to DLR Van Halen, because of their sense of humor. I mean, that's another reason why I love ZZ Top. They're another hard rock band that a big time, genuine classy sense of humor, and that's why I'm attracted to rock bands like that. So even if they did but then Van Halen did like a lot of cover tunes during their club days, because this took them a long time to get that record deal. The first record deal, they did a lot of cover tunes, and it took them years to get this record deal. But you know what? Even as a cover tune, it's so kick-ass. Another one of their more tunes that they would play every now and then. Track 11 and final track, On Fire. This track is how you end an album. This song right here. I mean, with a penultimate track like Ice Cream Man, and it transitions into this one, this is how a hard rock band should end an album. DLR's charisma and confidence. Badass Eddie guitar riffs. Those Alex Van Halen drums, and those choruses, where Michael Anthony's high-pitched harmonies really come into play. And singing along with DLR as he does his little screechings and whatnot. Oh my gosh, I love that little, after they sing that first chorus, that On Fire chorus, and then it would go into that little breakdown section. That's like one of my all-time favorite things and favorite moments, one of my all-time favorite moments in a rock song. And then Alex Van Halen just this little do on the drums. It's just, so awesome. What can you say? And then it would go into that second chorus to carry the song out. My gosh, what a great way to end the album. And my final thoughts on the album. Like I said, this album changed guitar playing. If you were to talk about Eruption, not just that alone, but this whole album in general changed guitar playing in the late 70s. Because if you think about it, there weren't that many guitar heroes. Of course there's a couple of them, but the man that really changed that really revolutionized the guitar playing was Jimi Hendrix. And not really that many guitar heroes really came in Hendrix's wake. I mean, of course you would have like say David Gilmour, of course Jimmy Page from Led Zeppelin, but Eddie Van Halen there are reasons why Eddie Van Halen is one of the most influential guitarists of all time. He would take like that tapping technique, or just the whole guitar tones and the playing in general, turn it up 11 more notches, raise the bar for it, raised several bars for it. Man, just took it to many levels above. My gosh, I mean, just what a way to introduce yourselves. What a way for the band to introduce themselves. Because this was the birth of one of the greatest rock bands of all time. An underrated rhythm section, Michael Anthony and Alex Van Halen. Alex Van Halen is definitely worthy of being in the conversation of one of the greatest rock drummers of all time. But of course, he would get more, demonstrate more of his chops on his drum kits later in the career. But of course, the rise of a new guitar hero and the rise of a new rock frontman. Michael Anthony, Alex Van Halen, Eddie Van Halen, and David Lee Roth. Man, this is a way to introduce yourselves, folks. Because when you listen to this album, there's also another album that was produced by Ted Templeman from the Warner Brothers label, and that was the Montrose self-titled debut, which had Sammy Hagar on vocals, Ronnie Montrose on lead guitar, the late great Ronnie Montrose on lead guitar, Bill Church on bass, and Danny Carmassi on drums. Again, produced by Ted Templeman. You can definitely hear like the Van Halen stuff. It's basically Van Halen a couple years prior to this album, to the Van Halen album. But Van Halen just kind of, you know, like I said, just took it more notches than the Montrose album. Unfortunately, because the Montrose album was really influenced Eddie Van Halen, because the Montrose self-titled debut from 1973 wasn't a giant seller. I mean, it's a platinum certified album in the States, but it would later become to be very influential to a lot of musicians. Like Iron Maiden would cover a song off of that. Album. Van Halen actually covered a song off of that album too. So you can definitely hear the Montrose where Van Halen would kind of pick up the sound, where Eddie Van Halen's brown sound would be established at the start of this album, and a lot of guitarists would definitely follow in his wake to establish the brown sound, that in your face, rough, dirty, crunchy guitar tone. One of my all-time favorite guitar tones ever. As a matter of fact, this band, I've said it before, Van Halen is one of my all-time favorite bands. And a lot of this band has like my favorite written all over it. David Lee Roth's my all-time favorite rock frontman. Eddie Van Halen is one of my all-time favorite guitarists, as well as one of my all-time favorite guitar tones. Alex Van Halen is my all-time favorite drummer. And Michael Anthony is criminally underrated. He's not going to be in the conversation of all-time great bass players, but that doesn't diminish the fact that I still love Michael Anthony. He's underrated as a bass player, but his high-pitched harmonies are, I think, a lot more underrated than his bass playing, in my personal opinion. But man, like I said, what a way for the band to introduce themselves. Take them years to get this record deal. At first, it didn't. From what I understand, a lot of people didn't really give it that much positive recognition. But over time, you can definitely see how this album sold 10 million copies in the States. It will become one of the greatest debut albums of all time. And it's one of my all-time favorite albums, period. A Desert Island album for me, for sure. Because the production, like I said, the tones, the charisma of David Lee Roth, and the criminally underrated rhythm section. It's just set that in stone for me. What a way to introduce the band, and what a road it's going to be from here on out. So, I will continue to do the rest of the David Lee Roth era Van Halen albums, and if you guys like this idea, I'll definitely keep doing that, because I have a bit of a stack of albums over there to my left or to your right. And if you guys like me doing album reviews just from my personal opinions, I will definitely keep doing that. Just let me know, and I will keep doing them in the future. So, but for now, I'm just going to keep paying my tributes to Eddie Van Halen and do the David Lee Roth era Van Halen albums. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this album review, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care. Stay safe.